Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into what many are calling a turning point in the war, the explosive attack on the bridge connecting Russia to the occupied peninsula of Crimea, and how this moment signals cracks in one of Vladimir Putin's most powerful symbols of control. For years, the bridge spanning the Kerch Strait has stood not only as a logistical lifeline for Russia's war effort, but as a monument announced as proof that Crimea is now irrevocably tied to Moscow. But when the security service of Ukraine claimed responsibility for a daring underwater blast beneath the bridge supports, they sent a message: Ukraine is willing and able to strike deep into what Russia considered untouchable. Let's unpack how this happened, what it means for both sides of the conflict, and why, despite assertions to the contrary, this could represent a significant blow to Russia's strategy and Putin's prestige. The attack took place in the earliest hours of the morning, according to the Ukrainian security service. Months of planning culminated in explosives being planted beneath one of the underwater supports of the bridge. Video was released of the underwater flash, the turbulence and surge in the water. The SBU claimed the operation badly damaged the support, making the bridge a legitimate military target given its role in supplying Russian-occupied forces. Russian officials responded swiftly. They denied any major damage and proclaimed the structure remained functional. The Kremlin spokesperson told media the bridge remained operational, and Russian channels moved quickly to reassure citizens and investors alike. But even Moscow's dismissal does not erase the facts or the symbolism from the moment the operation was announced. Strategic analysts, journalists, and war correspondents began to ask what happens when the most visible symbol of Russia's annexation is no longer inviolable. To appreciate the significance, we need to step back and look at the bridge's strategic role when Russia seized Crimea. One of the major engineering responses was the construction over several years of a road and rail link from the Russian mainland. That link carries more than just traffic. It carries fuel, ammunition, troops, heavy vehicles, and the narrative of a forever united Russia and Crimea. For Ukraine, the bridge has always been more than just infrastructure. It is a legitimate military target. In the view of Kyiv President Volodymyr Zelensky and others have repeatedly stated that the bridge represents the feeding of the war machine in Crimea and must be neutralized. By striking it, Ukraine achieves two things: one operational, one psychological. Operationally, if the bridge is impaired, it degrades Russia's ability to shift logistics. Even if temporarily. Psychologically, it strikes at the idea of permanence, the idea that Crimea is somehow sealed off from Ukraine's reach. What makes this particular attack noteworthy is the method and timing, doing this underwater beneath a heavily defended core. Redor required significant planning capability and secrecy. Ukraine's claim is that the agents planted the charges over months, waited for a moment of lower visibility, and then executed for Russia. The implication is alarming. If Ukraine can reach the bridge, what other safe assets are suddenly vulnerable? Russia's reaction was to downplay the damage, reopen traffic, and maintain that the bridge's integrity remains intact. But when you see the scoreboard of repeated attacks, October 2022, July 2023, June 2025, you begin to understand the pattern. This is a sustained campaign of attrition. Let's talk about the effects short-term and long-term. In the short term, Russia confirmed the road-rail link was shut for several hours. Traffic was disrupted and emergency measures were taken while no large-scale collapse was admitted. The fact that Moscow had to publicly respond and reassure indicates an internal recognition of the severity. In the longer term, there are several ripple effects. First, the logistics challenge. While the bridge did not fall, damage to supports means increased maintenance, greater vulnerability, more resources needed to defend, repair, and reinforce. This forces Russia to divert resources, attention, and morale towards protecting what was once a symbol of invulnerability. Second, the message to Russia's military and civilian population: the sense of invulnerability of key assets is shaken. If the bridge can be struck, then other critical nodes may be at risk. That creates psychological pressure, and in war, the perception of strength is itself a battlefield. Third, the message to Ukraine's domestic and international audiences: Ukraine demonstrates it is capable of bold, high-impact operations that may strengthen its bargaining position politically and militarily and boost morale among its forces and supporters. Fourth, the broader strategic message: wars of the modern era are not solely about front lines. They are about supply, morale, symbolism. By targeting symbolic infrastructure, Ukraine is shifting the war in a direction Russia might not be fully prepared for. However, it's not a flawless victory. A few things temper the impact. While Ukraine claims major damage verification from independent sources is limited, Russia maintains the bridge remains operational, so there is ambiguity about how severe the damage truly is. Also, the bridge remains in use, even if only partially impaired traffic has resumed, so while the sting is real, it has not delivered a catastrophic blow yet. And finally, Russia still controls Crimea, still has major local forces, still uses multiple supply routes, sea, air, other roads, so the bridge is important, but not the sole lifeline. What does this mean for Putin's wider goals? On one level, the bridge was a statement, annexation, complete connection, intact Western objections, irrelevant for Putin. The image of the structure, his presence, there are part of the narrative of Russian resurgence. The attack steals part of that narrative. It says one of your major monuments is not immune, one of your symbols can be breached. It also raises questions about Russian strain if maintaining and defending the bridge requires ever more resources, manpower, intelligence. What else in Russia's extended war economy is stretched? It invites scrutiny of Russia's home front vulnerabilities. For the international community, the attack highlights the evolving nature of the war. Ukraine is not only defending, it is going on the offensive, targeting strategic infrastructure far behind what was conventionally seen as front lines that may raise the stakes, invite escalation, but it also potentially changes the calculus of how the conflict is viewed by allies, adversaries, and neutral observers. Now, why do I call this the crumbling of Putin's pride? Because it is not just about metal and concrete. It is about image pride in terms of political capital, narrative, control, symbolism of strength. When an adversary repeatedly hits what you declared invulnerable, the aura of power weakens for many Russians. The bridge was a tangible token of victory for Ukraine and its supporters. Its damage is a token of resilience. That's not to say Putin is finished or that Russia's war effort collapses overnight. Far from it. What it means is that the narrative shifts. The aura of Russia's protection, permanence, and invulnerability weakens just enough to alter perceptions. And in modern war, perception is a powerful currency. What should we watch for next? Several things. How Russia responds. Will there be intensified attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure? In retaliation, will Russian forces divert more effort to protecting rear areas, thus stretching the front lines? Will Ukraine increasingly target other symbolic or logistical assets behind front lines? If so, the bridge may become just one in a series of high-profile strikes which chip away at Russia's rear support. Will Russia accelerate alternate supply solutions? Sea routes, air, other land corridors, will they attempt to repair or build redundant infrastructure faster? How will the war economy adapt if Russia spends more resources defending what were once rear assets? This may reduce their offensive capability at the front. That has ripple effects. And politically, how will the domestic story in Russia evolve? Will the population accept repeated strikes on infrastructure as normal, or will the psychological shock begin to affect morale, support for the war, for leadership, claims of control? In closing, the attack on the bridge is more than a single event. It is a symbol, a message, a shift. It shows that the war is evolving from fixed lines and artillery barrages to strategic penetration and symbolic strikes. It shows Ukraine's capabilities, growing its willingness to pressure Russia where it thought itself safe. And it shows that for Putin, one of the most visible pillars of his annexation may be shaken, perhaps not broken completely yet, but its shine is dimming. For viewers, it is a reminder. War is not just fought where bullets fly. Sometimes it is fought on the under side of bridges, in the tunnels of logistics, in the minds of populations. The future of this conflict will increasingly hinge on infrastructure, symbols, morale, and stealth operations, as much as it will on trenches and tanks. Thanks for watching. If you found this breakdown helpful, hit the like button, subscribe for more deep dives, and let me know in the comments what you think will be the next major target in this unfolding war.